Manchester United just won the derby. Our supporters should be buzzing. And yet, fans are organising protests. That tells you this isn't about results, managers or transfers anymore. It's about ownership, and it's about a breaking point. We've been talking on this podcast about the Glazers and INEOS, about 20 years of failed leadership, about where this club is heading since episode 2, 54 episodes ago. And today, despite a derby win, many supporters are saying enough. In this conversation with Steve from the 1958, we explain why protests are happening now, what outcome supporters want, and why short-term results on the pitch are no longer enough. This isn't reaction. This is the consequence. Let's kick it off. I'm Steve, and I'm joined by Ash and another Steve. We have Steve from the 1958 with us, so thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. There's only one place to start. Following the weekend, Manchester United beat Manchester City 2-0. Could have been 5-0, could have been 7-0. So, Steve, I know you're front row of Stretford End Tier 2, so fair to say you had a good Saturday?
It was, yeah. I mean, there was chaos, and I mean, I suppose this is part and parcel of spending life with Varno as a live match-going fan. It was, I think I had to pick myself up off the floor twice, and then it's like you've got people tapping in on the bike lights, offside.
Yeah.
You know, it was. I mean, what a performance it was. When you least expect it, I mean, I think everybody, if we're totally honest, was expecting an absolute drubbing on Saturday. Yeah, I get the Carrick bounce and new manager bounce, but I think we never really saw that under Amorim, did we? It went from all right gradually to it got worse, but it was just. Do you know what? For me, as a match-going fan, watching players give 100% is kind of all you ask for. The rest follows, you know what I mean? And it's nobody there's nobody ever sort of foolish enough to think, well, we deserve to win every game because, we're not that team anymore. But giving 100% from start to finish, and then players that went off about the 70th minute or so, they were done. They had given everything, so it's great to see, and it's all you want. And the result, I mean, we made City look very average. It was quite shocking, but a good day. Good day.
Yeah. So, look, it was a great result, great performance, but there is obviously bigger fish to fry, and that is why we've got you on here, Steve.
Big fish.
To talk about the issues at the club, the cancer at the club, we can say, at the end of the day, we all love United because of what happens on the pitch. But obviously when decisions off the field start to impact things happening on the pitch, that's when we start to get concerned. And obviously, Steve, you're part of the 1958. So would you just talk to us a little bit about your background, first of all, when you first started following United and kind of how that then developed into forming the 1958?
Me personally, sort of my initial games were birthdays and Boxing Day as a very, very youngster. And they were the late 70s, and I grew up predominantly listening to midweek games on the radio with my dad. It was the only time he'd let me stay up late, do you know what I mean? Because I was very, very young at the time, witnessing the 77, 79 cup finals. Because, I mean, back then, and even through the 80s, United were a good cup team. It's kind of all, we never really, never in my wildest dreams. I think the season, so I got my season ticket the season the Premier League started.
92, 93.
Good timing.
92, 93.
Amazing.
That was good. Well, good timing. But back then you collected tokens to get what was called the match ticket book. So that the actual match day ticket, you cut out the middle, and you had a double A4 thing from the club, and you literally stuck each, and you needed every home game to qualify for what was then called a league match ticket book.
I was going to say, I remember being a kid, hearing about that, the booklet they called it, right?
But all that was A to Z vouchers, and you just got told what like today is voucher D, E, whatever it
Right.
was.
Okay.
You literally went through the alphabet through your vouchers.
Wow.
But it was, going as a school kid. I started going on my own probably when I was 14, 15, to Old Trafford, catching a match bus, getting there for when the turnstiles opened, so you get down to the front of the Stretford end. And because as daft as it sounds, it was the safest place to be, because you've
Yeah.
got back then you had the railings still.
Right.
Whenever a goal was scored, it was, whoever was behind you as an adult, they held on the railings and made sure that all the kids down the front. So it was the safest place to be.
Right.
Yeah, and then, as I said, it was, when the season before the Premier League, when we lost the league to Leeds,
Oh,
that
first
was it for
division.
me. We're never going to win the league. We just can't. We're never a football team that are ever going to win the league. We'll enjoy good cup runs, some days at Wembley, and you sort of reside to that. And then what followed, crikey, never in my wildest dreams. So it was. There's, well, there's been ups and downs with it, but that's part and parcel of being a football fan. That's you don't. I've always said to people, football works in cycles, and you'll be on top, and then you won't. Some teams are never fortunate to even witness being
Yeah.
on top, so we are quite fortunate, I think, as fans of Manchester United. Then, as far as the 58 are concerned, so they as a group were formed after the European Super League. The Liverpool game got called off.
Yep.
A group of like-minded Reds who I instantly got behind. It was a voice that was seemingly a sensible voice, and I got behind everything. You attend every protest, your face gets known and seen, and I was invited to the Richard Arnold pub meeting that went
Haha, you were
down.
there, the famous
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. Wasn't quite what we was expecting. I don't think any of us were, but it was, it was certainly a day to remember. And from then, I've just grown into the group, if you will, and I've taken over more the media side of stuff, but also being the first face that I to be honest, I was at a point where I didn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? It was, I don't care who sees my face. I don't care about the flack I'll get on social media, because that was always a concern. Is that
Yep.
once you are known, you become a target. Um, but I'm old enough and daft enough to not let sort of hurty words get to me on Twitter, so I wasn't really bothered. But in fairness, in general, it went good. It went well from being that first name. I think the first thing I did was when it first came out was on Stretford Paddock with Jay.
Yep.
I think it went down a lot better than everybody thought it would. As in, right, okay, well, we have got somebody to talk to. Can be a bit of a burden at times when you've got a family, you've got a full-time job, and
Yeah.
it's trying to cram all that in, and especially the run up to because kind of everybody wants a piece of you. Then journalists, as I said, I just had Chris literally as we were starting. Chris Wheeler was, have you got time for a chat? So, but we'll catch up tomorrow. The plus side to that though is the mainstream media. I mean, I took it on board to try and build relationships up with the media initially. And it was hard work. We didn't have a lot of credibility at the time. Yes, we'd made some noise. How long was it going to last? Was it a flash in the pan? Is these lads going to disappear?
Yep.
And we stood the test of time to the point where we begged the press to sort of write something up on what we was doing. Whereas now it's kind of, it's gone full circle, and the press are hounding us to protest,
Yeah.
as mad as it sounds. So here we are. That's the 1958, and the rest, as they say, is history. We've organised a lot of protests. We've
Yep.
given ourselves a lot of traction, both follower wise on social media accounts, but also within. We've got our own subscription on the FC Fan Coalition 58, and I mean the last time I looked at that, there was over 95,000 members on there. So
That's good.
people appreciate what we do, and we don't do what we do for the without being disrespectful to you guys, I've got better things to be doing at 8:30 at night. You know what I mean? But you do it for the love, don't you? You know, we're not in it for anything else other than we want to see these absolute tosspot owners gone, you know, rid from our football club. And, you know, sadly now that I put Radcliffe in the same bracket, I don't see any good coming from this partnership that is set up. And I also don't feel at the minute that this partnership is going to change. I think when we did slacken off from what we was doing protest wise, it's like, you know, there was that glimmer of, I suppose, desperate hope that everybody had that this might turn out for the better. It might be the end of the Glazers. And I think it's been quite the opposite, sadly. So, you know.
And just to ask, Steve, where did you stand on it? You know, at the time, like you said, I think there was obviously a lot of talk within the fan base, Qatar or INEOS. We won't go down that route, but obviously we didn't have a say in what happened there. When obviously Jim did the deal with the Glazers, what was your thinking at the time? Did you see a glimmer of hope and think this might lead somewhere?
It's quite weird, actually, because I was on a space earlier and there was spaces where, I mean, they probably still are, just I don't have time, you know, as much time as I did have to be able to sit in and listen and chat on things like that. But I do think they're a great source of people communicating. I think they're quite a cool thing. But then it was always all everybody wanted to do was nail me down to one mast or the other. And it was all I ever said was, first and foremost, it is a full sale. What we are looking for is a full sale, the Glazers to sell all their shares of the football club to somebody else. That was what we was after. And I did say at the time that, you know, I think what people are not, everybody's gone either Qatar or Radcliffe, but what people aren't considering with this, the main factor was the Glazers and the greed of the Glazers. And it sadly, it was that greed that kept them at the football club. I think the Qataris, if what we're led to believe is factual, that the Qataris were very, very close valuation-wise, but, you know, why that didn't get over the line, I do not know. But, you know, we are where we are now and back to square one, I think. If anything, I feel like we've gone backwards.
Steve, like on that point of like almost like you're either Qatar or Jim, like how polarizing was that for like your like group, like in terms of whether it was like the fans that you go with, like match day, like you go to the pub? Because like for us, it was really heated, our podcast group.
Ash, you might as well expose yourself that you were one that backed INEOS. Yeah,
I'm absolutely happy to say when it was a case of like you got to put, you know, your flag to either Qatar or INEOS. I said INEOS for all sorts of reasons, you know, mainly, you know, to do with the fact that, you know, Jim is from Manchester. Like, I know there's the whole Chelsea side, but, you know, he lived in London. He also said, like, and I guess this is what you're going to probably talk about, Steve, is like the PR that he was coming with, even before he actually looked to invest money, seemed sensible to me. You know, he questioned the way the Glazers operated, the way they were just like spending ridiculous money on transfers, but like with no plan, you know. And this is the thing, right? You know, talk is cheap. So once he's had the hot seat, we've seen his actions completely change, right? Because if I had known, for example, he's going to raise ticket prices, you know, cut, you know, free lunches and like, you know, cut the Christmas gifts that they were giving out, I wouldn't have signed up for that. Yeah, charity funding for the, you know, former players association. 40 grand, you know, absolutely no way would I have signed up for that.
I think what's been bad is we had all the flannel, which I think is where we're at with it. We were sold down the road with what come out of his mouth. But again, I think a lot of that was desperation for something good to happen.
Absolutely.
You know, everybody was just so pissed off with it that, you know, it's just, for Christ's sake, you know, let's start afresh here. And he used all the key words that got people giddy, and I fell for it. And I think we all did at that time. Yeah. But it was, I think after we'd done the last protest we did, I think was Arsenal.
Arsenal, yeah. He did the interview the next day, didn't he? I remember
the day after,
the overlap.
He threw together an interview with Gary Neville, And
Yeah.
then the day after that, he announced this
New stadium.
stadium. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I like how you did air quotes.
I think the interview we did with Gary Neville, I think his true colours came out then a little bit more. And I think it was rushed. You know,
Yeah.
that was a panic interview. For me personally, I mean, it was the same stuff he did with Andy Mitten when
Yeah.
he's talking about why should Man United fans be paying less than Fulham?
Yeah,
It's
it's a
like,
ridiculous comment. Absolutely ridiculous.
what planet do you live on? And it's, and I think the penny started dropping a little bit with people, certainly match-going fans, because I believe, well, staff, okay, there may have been money squandered. The Glazers probably weren't keeping a tight ship. But then, you look at the 66 quid. I did some rough calculations, and the damage that did for the back end of that season. And bearing in mind, they couldn't give those tickets away at 66 quid. I know they've gone up a little bit more now, but they struggled selling them. Then all of a sudden, the prices went back down because the away allocation, and some of it had been sent back, so there's some extra tickets. Like, come on, man, we're not bloody idiots. And you think, okay, over the space, I think there was 12 or 13 games, minus season ticket holders, minus away fans, because these are the ticket, and it might have sort of recouped a couple of $100,000 over them games. And you just think, really, the optics of what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I work in sales and marketing, and what you don't do is take a shit product, give it a premium price with a promise that, well, if you start paying this premium price, what I'll do with the money you're giving me is I'll make it better. It's laughable, but that's exactly what he was trying to do. And it's fix what's happening on the field first.
You know, one of the worst comments from that interview with Gary Neville, and like big red flags started going in my head, was he was saying to Neville about like whether it's through cost cutting or increasing ticket prices, this is all going to go back into transfer fees. And I'm thinking, to your point, a few $100,000, that's not going to touch the surface. And also, like you said, optically, it was horrendous time to be doing all this because the team were performing utterly. But there's no words, right? Like, you've been a supporter longer than me. Like, that's some of the worst stats that the club has ever had, right? In terms of where we finished and league seasons. So, like, to do it at that particular point in time, it's like they don't know how to read the room even now. But like,
it was a rush. It was a rush job, like you said, Steve. Because if we rewind the clock to that point. Obviously, last season was an absolute disaster, right? Ten Hag got set October, November. Obviously, Ruben came in. Results didn't really pick up. And then I remember that Arsenal protest. I was there. Beautiful day, massive numbers, absolutely huge numbers. Really good momentum, it felt like. And then you kind of get home and you're thinking, all right, we can start to build something. And then you bang, overlap interview with Neville and Ratcliffe, and obviously the new stadium plan. So it was definitely... They put that out to try and squash the momentum, right? Is that how you felt?
They wanted to put the fire out that we'd started. It was panic stations, and there's stuff like, if we hadn't have made these changes, the club would have run out of money at Christmas.
Absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Come on, we're not bloody idiots. I mean, I'm no financial guru, but when you're going to spend £1.5 billion on something, you do your due diligence, and whether what you're putting your money into is going to run out of, is going to cease trading. It sounds farcical, but you're right. It was all just a big push. But the problem is that I think we've certainly come across this, is that we do battle, as far as protesting is concerned, we battle our own fan base half the time.
I just want to touch on earlier, in this current season. So I can't remember exactly, you'll have to remind me, but I know you 1958 were kind of planning to get the protest going for this season, and then I believe you sent out the survey before the season started to get a feeling of where do people stand on the current ownership. Obviously this is post 3 pretty good signings in Mbeumo, Cunha and Shesko. So obviously we know what social media is like as well, especially. Yeah, talk to us about that in terms of how you tried to kind of get things going, and then almost the reaction to the survey. I think you kind of put things on hold. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we did the survey because of the backlash we got for daring to question Radcliffe's sort of intent and motives. And we were quite taken aback with it, to be fair. It was like, okay. So, as I said, we've got over 90,000 members, so we put a survey out, and it was quite split, but it did tip towards, we've got to give them time, the mess the Glazers left, blah, blah, blah. And I do and don't understand it. But you've got to, we represent these people, like it or not. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but these are the people we represent, and you've got to listen. And it was hard for me because for me it was the right thing to do, but we held off. Things gradually went from bad to worse, and then even worse, and it just kept going down and down. Every game you come away and you think, right, you can't get any worse, but
yeah,
Radcliffe seems to have found a way to make it worse, and that's more, predominantly the people that we represent are match-going fans, predominantly, and away fans getting sanctioned, spot checks on away games now.
yeah,
It just, it all feels, and then Little are getting tickets that
yeah,
we was told it was Adidas, and believe you me, wasn't. They weren't Adidas tickets at all. And it's just, it seems that the football's been dire, but then every little avenue or every turning they could take, it was a kick in the teeth to match-going fans. Whether it was season ticket holders or members, that the tiered prices for members, you got your A, B, and C tier. C being the cheapest, and there was two. They put two teams in that tier, so there's only 2 games out of the season that they deemed, that were a sort of a category 3, if you will, or however you want to term it. And it was not being able for me to. I mean, we've got 2 season tickets, myself and my wife, and not just being to just transfer my ticket to my lad because if I can't make a game.
It's a pain,
And then, everything's just, we've gone from 16 to 17 to 18 games you must attend.
Yeah.
Or, and that kind of understand. Nobody wants an empty seat. But then who is a season ticket holder is like, I can't get there this week. Do you know what? I'll just leave it empty.
Do you know what, Steve, though, on things like that, if the sentiments that have been coming from INEOS and Jim Ratcliffe over the last 2 years was about fan culture and about the club, I would half accept it, right? You're kind of saying it yourself, right? Because you want a bum on the seat, ideally a proper United fan, right? But that's the problem, and they've just sucked the life and the goodwill and the atmosphere, not just out of like the fans, but also within staff. Right? You've heard all sorts of stories about what they've been doing over the last 2 years, and that's the issue, right? Like, we know that all these rules about the season tickets, whether it's home or away, it's all to just suck more money out of us, even though they're the ones who are like, hemorrhaging the money with like the sacking and the compensation of Ten Hag. Ruben's cost like probably 20 odd million because we paid a fee to get him and his staff. Now we're paying compensation for that.
Dan
so all
Ashworth.
These little savings that they've made, Dan Ashworth, all these savings that they've made, like these like couple $100,000, it's all gone out the water anyway.
It's gone and more on top.
And more, yeah.
So theoretically, we should know if what Jim was saying was correct about the running out of money malarkey,
we're
then
bust.
We should have run out of money quite a few weeks ago, you would have thought.
Yeah.
Certainly when Ruben got his payoff. But, again with that, it's questionable. You've got Barada as a CEO who's never been a CEO. And I've got friends, I've got like real diehard City fan mates, and they've, at the time, I think a lot of United fans were like, oh my God, we took the best from City.
Excited,
Yeah, and he said, you know what, you are more than welcome to. He doesn't honestly, he does not give a toss about match-going fans. It's all about the commercial side.
Which is proven in his actions.
I heard at Man City that's what he did. Like, the ticket prices have continuously gone up. And, you know, that's why some of the songs even that we have, right, Empty Had, etc., is to do with the fact that actually for the match day going fan, like if you want to take a couple of kids and yourself, it actually costs quite a bit, and like not everyone can afford it. So yeah, those murmurings and like rumors were like there for City fans, and like he's been true to his word and done it at Old Trafford, no doubt with the help of Jim, right? Because whatever Jim says, Omar just nods and does it.
I call him a puppet, don't I? As in, he'll do whatever Jim tells him
and
to do.
that's what Jim surrounded himself with. You know, Jason Wilcox, whoever's decision, and apparently the falling out with Dan Ashworth was because he didn't see Ruben as the right fit. Presto, a man who knows his job.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus two that don't, and he was right and got sacked. And these two clones, him and Wilcox, are still in a job. And it's just like, okay, so what's to say that the next one's not going to be? Nobody's got any confidence in anything they do. And, you know, you bring in Amorim, who plays a system that we've got absolutely never done before. Granted, players can learn and da-da-da-da-da, but then we haven't got the players in the right positions. Then you've got the likes, I mean, for me, two of our probably, when you use the word best, but better players would have been in Bruno and Ahmad, and they're both playing out of position to accommodate this egomaniac who won't change or do anything. Great guy, lovely in front of a camera. You know, it's being nice to the press doesn't having a nice smile doesn't win football games, does it?
And again, on the point of Jim Ratcliffe, like that interview, I think it was the Gary Neville one, when obviously the question of like, how do you think Ruben's doing? He has the audacity to be like, he's doing a superb job, or whatever word he used, right? It was like, he was doing a great job. It's like, at the time, I think we were mid-table and like we just scraped through in the Europa. And it's like, who are you kidding? Like, he's taking the fans for a ride.
This podcast is sponsored by Go Play Sports, the brand new mobile app changing the game for grassroots. Whether it's Sunday League or five-a-side, Go Play Sports makes it easy to track attendance, manage teams and cut out the manual admin. No more endless group chats, no more chasing payments, just turn up and play. Go Play Sports. Download now from your app store.
Steve, I just wanted to quickly ask a question about the survey that, you know, when you decided to hold back for a bit, did you have to be a member to respond to that survey, or could anyone respond to that survey?
Not without being a member. And we also know the split of our members, as in how many are season ticket holders, match-going fans. Because, you know, again, why do a survey? It's like the club doing a survey on the stadium and sending it out to anybody, any Tom, Dick and Harry. You know, it's, you know, the match-going fans, great to watch on TV, you know, and I've got no issue. I mean, I was with guys from India on Saturday. I've got some good friends from India. I was very fortunate, myself and my lad. We went over to India with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he went for the 3 nights over there.
Wow.
And we were kind of Ollie's opening up, dad and lad, and you know, we did a Q&A with Andy Mitney. Fantastic time.
Nice.
We've stayed, you know, there's some lads from Poon. They was over, you know, and I'll just get a WhatsApp, Steve, we're here for City, same place, same time. Do you know what I mean? And it's the worldwide fan base is fantastic.
Do you have a gauge of how many, you know, season ticket holders you have within your membership? And you just answered that question. I think you do, right?
Well, it's providing the information. It's volunteered information. So provided, we don't ask for membership numbers or nothing like that.
Yes, yeah.
So providing the information we got is accurate, and I can't see from you know, why it wouldn't be. Then, you know, with a rough idea what the split is. Nobody's ever submitted any information. It's just a yes/no Q&A, and, you know, where do you sit? You know, where are you as a fan type of things.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and what's the rough number? Like, how many do you have in terms of season ticket holders?
I think there is. I'll find out. I don't actually know what the exact figure is, but I'll definitely find out for you.
No, that's interesting to me because obviously we want to understand, you know, what your plans are, what your aims are. But I've always thought like, oh, it'd be great, obviously, to know who actually is a season ticket holder, because, you know, we'll touch on it in terms of in-stadium protests, but obviously being able to coordinate in it is difficult. And obviously social media, there's so much noise out there. And as much as we value fans from all over, I I'm sorry, but the match-going fans, we spend the £1,000 on the season ticket. We spend the money on the travel. We buy every home cup game so we can apply for aways. So I do feel like, that match-going fan base, almost if we could coordinate them somehow, it would be really powerful. Even if it is 20,000 out of 70,000, if we, for example, decided that we want to make a show in the stadium and say that 20,000, we're going to turn up 10 minutes late. I know it happens anyway because the pubs get busy and there's turnstiles get busy, but is that something that's ever been thought about or discussed within the 58?
Yeah, we did a sit-in protest a couple of years ago, but I mean that took some coordinating. I think it was the second game of the season. Might have been Forest.
Was it not? Yeah, I was going to say Forest, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and the first game of the season was Wolves, and then we had Spurs away.
It was a Saturday, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, we'd had something
game.
like 50,000 leaflets printed with an army of fans at the Wolves game handing leaflets out. But it can get quite. I mean, I've always said 10% of the match-going fan base will protest.
Mm-hmm.
And how you convert the other 90%, I do not know. That's kind of I don't know how bad it's got to be before others will. We always get between, say, 3 and 7,000 towards a protest. The last one we did, GMP, they estimated that at about 5,000 people. It obviously gets more as you get nearer the stadium because there's just that natural backlog of people behind you. Optically, it's a bigger head of numbers. But trying to get through to that sort of the rest is I don't know. Sometimes
it's a challenge you're trying to solve, isn't it? I guess,
when we've done protest and gone round the ground, there are people genuinely bewildered what you're doing, honestly. Right. And, we did, I don't know if you saw when we did, it was only a small protest for the kit launch again a year or so ago.
I think I vaguely remember this.
And there was about 20, 30 of us there, but it went absolutely crazy media-wise.
Right.
It was all over the world. I was, they news picked up. It was quite funny because I think it was deadline day and Sky Sports were due to be filming outside, but the club dragged them inside and they ended up filming behind a pretend Old Trafford on a green screen. It was quite comical.
So, Steve, on that point, actually, in terms of we don't know what the best solution is, what ideas have been discussed just out of interest, just to get an insight of what happens within the group? What kind of things were suggested?
Crikey. Also, everything. Whatever you can come up with.
Anything and everything.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? In terms of the 10% number that are willing to protest, we all know United season ticket holders, people that go to the games, and it's fair to say that the vast majority of them surely aren't happy with the Glazer ownership. I'm not talking protest, I'm just talking generally in terms of, what we've seen over the last 20 years. You would think, right? I'd like to think it's more 75, 90%, but let's just be conservative and say it's 50%. So if we assume that the majority of the fan base aren't happy with the ownership, yeah, if there was some way to coordinate, and I take your point about having to do it with flyers and word of mouth, that's just, who's got time for that on top of a job and family, like you said, Steve? But if we could, through technology, bring together season ticket holders, whether, like you said, it's 1958 memberships and, you can tick whether you're a season ticket holder. If we can then, through digital means, collect season ticket holders together, like I said, if it's 20,000, great, even if it's 10,000. And then if we decide collectively we want to protest in the stadium, doing that digitally surely is more feasible than, trying to do it physically, I guess. Where do you stand on that?
It'd definitely be easier and more cost effective. I mean, we got a bit of help with the leaflets we had done, as an example. A mate of mine owns his own printing company, so, we paid costs for that. It would save a whole heap on manpower.
Yeah.
But it still also needs manning,
coordination
and monitoring. And, there's an amount of technology needed there that ain't my forte.
Just to let you know, Steve, we work in technology, so this is where I would actually love to help.
Because I don't.
No, but like, yeah, if we can bring a decent number of us together, then doing this through digital means, and look, like social media, like we've said, we value all United fans. This is not about tiering us in some, elite
No,
category.
not at all.
But we, like I said, we spend our hard-earned money. We go week in, week out. We were there. I was there at the shit game against Brighton, wasted 4 hours of my Sunday to watch that shit. But like, this is where I get frustrated because, social media, those 3 signings in the summer probably kept half of our global fan base quiet because they were excited about the new signings. But any Red who's worth their salt knows this ownership is cancerous, right? And we wouldn't get swayed. Yes, we all get excited like we're buzzing off the win on the weekend, but long term, we know this is, we might do all right, we might get in the top 4, but, we want to be up there competing and not having cash drained from our football club, right? So this is where I do think there's something to look at in terms of how we utilize technology. So I'd love to help.
Yeah, we'll have a conversation about it. Yeah,
I was going to say
absolutely.
to both Steves, like Saturday was incredible, and let's hope Carrick can carry on. But yeah, that protest at Fulham, just please make sure it happens.
It always has been. The numbers that attend a protest is a barometer for what we can do next. And if there's 5,000 people turn up, then, talk of a boycott is just a waste of breath. It's hot air. What difference is 5,000 people staying out of Old Trafford going to make? Optically, you wouldn't even know they weren't there.
Yeah, a lot of people criticise, don't they? They say, "Oh, what's a march going to do and all this?" But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. For you guys, that's kind of like you're building momentum. You want to build on that and then, create something further. But people are just looking at that on isolation and saying, "Oh, what's that going to do?" Is that fair? Like your aim is to build, but you keep getting these roadblocks, whether it's Ratcliffe's overlap interview or these stadium plans. Is that how you see it?
It was comical because somebody sent to me that when we announced our protest, it came up on the, the Sky News, the ticker news thing as it scrolls up. And it was 1958 announced protest for start of the season. Next one, Man United put a bigger bid in for Sesko, and it's like, for the love of fucking God,
Yeah, they know what they're doing, don't they?
Yeah.
And that does sway people. And, listen,
Definitely.
I get that people have got, that there are different levels of, I suppose, emotional attachment to any football club. And, I would never criticize somebody for not protesting. If they've got, if they're here as a one-off or whatever the reason, or it's not for me to criticize, but it's also not for others to criticize what we're doing. I don't believe.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
We blocked the Munich tunnel when we did the, it was Villa when we marched from town. That was a mistake. We're not doing that again.
Few steps, yeah.
Yeah. We came all the way from the Nag Z, and it was a great turnout. And then we stopped in the Munich tunnel, and we should have been in there. I think it was at the time 18 minutes for 18 years, and it ended up that one of the lads with us who was in the tunnel blocking it got punched in the face by another United fan because he couldn't get past to get into the ground for kickoff. That is what you're up against.
It's tough. There's no magic bullet. I think that's why, it's not been solved. And this is why I know there's multiple podcasts, there's multiple channels, and, we've talked about trying to unify the voice. But I just think it's got to be the match going fans that if we can unify ourselves a little bit more, then, those wider groups, they can come together or they don't come together. Ultimately, I think we have more power as match going fans.
Yeah. I mean, we're currently working on sort of a unity charter, if you will, within groups, influential groups to do with match-going fans.
Yeah.
And that's been, again, a work in progress that's gone on and on and on and on. We're working in conjunction with the FSA with that.
Nice.
So, it's difficult to balance, say 2 groups have got different views. For you to come together, there's got to be some give and take. Do you know what I mean? And it's deciding who gives and which bit you want to give and which bit you'll take. Do you know what I mean? the difficult, the quite fragile subject to sort of navigate around. But I think we're at the end with that, and we've done a lot of work with the FSA, and as a result of that, we made some very, very good contacts and now friends within just every single Premier League group that there is out there. Whether that's Liverpool, Man City. I've been out for drinks over Christmas with the lads at from the 1890. I always get it mixed up. 1894, I believe. That's the City's equivalent to what we do. Dante, who's one of the main guys there. And when you speak to like-minded match-going fans, most clubs have got the same issues.
Yeah.
What they've not got is the mountain of debt that's crippling us moving forward. That there's a big difference.
Yeah.
But Andy, who's West Ham, a very influential guy at West Ham, they're going through absolute hell down there. It's greed. Greed is consuming football, and if it doesn't stop, there won't be football. There certainly won't be football that I'll be interested in going to. The sterile. I have seen through the club, so this is not just something made up, where they are looking at, or they've looked into the technology of being able to be a virtual fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there'll be fans planted with microphones, and you can be that fan.
Yeah.
Quite how that'd work in the Stretford end, I don't know.
We actually had Kieran Maguire, he's the football finance guy.
Yeah.
You would have seen him on Sky Sports and BBC. We had him on the podcast. A month or two ago when those tweets came out from the Saudi guy, and he sparked some rumours about takeover. I think he put a tweet out about the Glazers.
Yeah.
So it was just coincidental timing that he'd come on the pod. And, we obviously spoke to him about what's the appetite from the Glazers to sell, and he mentioned there's a lot of talk within current Premier League owners about the next step up in valuation for football clubs is when people can start, through VR headsets, start attending games virtually, and obviously the clubs can start charging tickets, and that's the next big jump up in valuation. So he thinks the Glazers are hanging out around for that, and obviously that's probably 5+ years away.
Well, I mean, with that, what you're also doing there is you're effectively just building your own TV channel.
Yeah.
And, that a club with the whatever the number is in billions of fans, the Glazers must be creaming themselves at the thought of that. Is, every single one of them pays something, as opposed to the Premier League getting paid.
Yeah, and be redistributing. Yeah.
And then being redistributed. Well, why can't we have that ourselves? Because we're the biggest followed football club, or one of the biggest followed football clubs in the world. So but for me, my going back to protesting is, I think my train of thought now is to push Radcliffe. He said he will not take the abuse that the Glazers have got. And to me, that was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Red rag to a bull, that is.
I was going to say, especially what they did to him at Fulham.
I think the Glazers can't survive without Radcliffe. And unless Radcliffe's got a plan, which I just don't see it, as in, what, you're going to find when you quote £2 billion for a football stadium, it's going to cost you £3 billion plus. It's never
And
£2
the
billion
rest.
quid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The other thing with Ratcliffe is like his core business, INEOS, they've not had the best year. He started to exit other sporting ventures. He's trying to sell Nice.
He's cut the price of Nice.
Yeah, he's dropped that.
So, I think you mentioned it on message, Steve, the perfect storm could be coming, but that's where the fan pressure needs to be applied from our side, right, as part of that storm. And I guess that's where obviously the Fulham protest comes into it. So I guess what's your message to United fans, obviously around that protest? If they're going to the game, I'm sure obviously, you want them to be part of that protest, but how can people get behind it?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be another press release going out this week at some point, and then we'll probably leave the actual protest details to the week after, so the week run up to the protest.
Yeah.
Because people just forget, you do need to be mindful of, people do have plans and etc. So if you leave it a little bit later, but again, that the media in general is all over it, which is great for us.
Yeah.
You certainly, with mainstream media and social media, how somebody can be at Old Trafford and say they didn't know there was a protest is quite beyond me.
Yeah.
Whether they choose to not be involved, again, that's absolutely fine. But I think it's the message is getting out there a lot harder. You know, there was some big, the guy's name, Sully's name, is quite a big account on social media, and they reached out to me about we want to put this statement together. And there was quite a big collective. And at one point, United is Broken was trending at number 5 in the UK. Well, that's got to be sustained. What happens is that you do something like that, and then we win the Manchester derby. All that's forgotten about.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you've then got to come back to it now. It's like, right, okay, the euphoria of that game's gone. Let's get back to what we're doing now. We'll probably go and beat Arsenal at the weekend, which will get even harder. But, you know.
No, that's the big message from, like, certainly from me, even to like our listeners and viewers, is that if you're a Manchester United supporter and you're going to the game against Fulham, like, regardless of like the result against Arsenal, please attend that protest. And like, yeah, whatever survey is done, Steve, about like potentially not having the protest, from let's kick it off, ignore it and protest.
Trust me, there's not a survey being done.
Good.
That I can guarantee.
Because that protest needs to happen. Like,
it does 100%.
You know, because the thing is, and like, look, we're in this cycle of like not winning the league for 13 years, and like obviously what the Glazers were doing before, even when Sir Alex was still there. We have to come together as much as we can as a fan group and do these steps, like, you know, protesting at Fulham. And look, Michael Carrick, hopefully he gets the boys unsung and like they go and win the next 16 games. But we can still protest and get these owners kicked out. And like that is the only way that we're going to get our club back. Because like you said earlier, we're hemorrhaged with debt. They're going to get more loans out, especially if they get the stadium. And yep, like we could potentially finance it. But why? Why should we finance it, right? Like it should be our club. You know, we should be the ones who, you know, have a mission to like, you know, get this club back from the Glazers. It's going to be hard. And that's the thing, right? Like you got to be in it for the long run. And that's the message to the fans.
Yep, absolutely. I think we'll wrap it up there, Steve. We will get these owners out. I'm confident. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.